Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Council Chambers on this snowy February 26th day. Just a kudos and a shout out, taking some pointers from Councillor Anderson. I'd like to make sure that we want to start with a little gratitude to our public works. Yesterday evening, I know it was starting to snow, but it was also icy. Around 7 o'clock, I was in the town driving around doing some errands, and the snow trucks are out sanding. So good work there on that with Public Works to make sure that our roads are a little bit safer for this morning. And early this morning, they're out and about doing the Priority 1 road. So in terms of gratitude, we want to make sure that we thank Public Works for the work that they do. Moving on, there's agenda before you, so adoption of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council adopt the February 26, 2024 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you. Administration, anything to
add? No, Your Worship, nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, we call the question. All in favor? That is carried. All right, moving on to number 3 of our agenda is the public input session. This is the time that we allow residents to address anything that's not on the council agenda package from residents and stakeholders. Administration, has anybody registered to sign in to speak?
Through Your Worship, no, there has not.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the gallery like to speak to council on anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Okay, moving on to number 4 of our agenda is the presentations and delegations, and we have an appointment of the next deputy mayor. So, Deputy Mayor Meyer, thank you for your time as Deputy Mayor. Appreciated you handling some of the events that I was not able to attend. And I think you're also going overtime. I think you're also scheduled to attend a conference for me on April 4th to the 5th on the Cannabis Recovery Capital Conference. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for signing up and making sure you're there to cover what I'm not.
Well, thank you for the opportunity and trusting me to represent you. And I'd like to also pass on my appreciation for letting me chair some of those meetings as well. It was a great opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So there's a motion on the agenda as 4.1. Let me find that first. Councilor Laura, if we can have the motion first, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council appoint Councillor Harold Plechko as Deputy Chief Elected Official for the term of February 26, 2024 to June 30th, 2024, or until the appointment of the next Deputy Chief Elected Official.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Plechko, anything to say before we signed your certificate?
Nothing to say, but I understand you've got a bit of a challenge ahead of yourself, so you have fun while you're gone in the next month.
For sure. I'll be leaning on you quite a bit, so we'll have those conversations, and definitely appreciate you as Deputy Mayor, and with your experience over the last 6 years, I'm pretty sure that I can leave this in safe hands with you for that. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And now, Councillor Plechko, if I can have you come down, we'll swear you in to make you official. I, Councillor Harold Plechko. Swear I will diligently. Faithfully. As my ability. Execute according to the law. The office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Stony Plain. The office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Stony Plain. That's all I got.
No.
Thank you. Now, as Deputy Mayor is officially sworn in, Deputy Mayor Plechko, look forward to your leadership in the next couple months and definitely stepping in for me when I'm not able to, so appreciate that. Members of Council, moving on with agenda number 5 is statutory public hearings. We have nothing scheduled tonight. So moving on to number 6, which is the adoption of council minutes for the RCM of February 12th. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council approved the February 12th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. Members of Council, you had the opportunity to read them. Any errors or omissions on them? Okay. I didn't see any either, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Moving on to number 7, which is council boards and committee minutes. 7.1 is the growth and commerce from December 19th. Councillor Hansard.
Your Worship, I move that Town Council receive the council board and committee minutes for information.
Thank you. Members of Council, you had opportunity to read the minutes. Any questions, comments, or just some commentary from the members at large that sit on there? Oh, didn't see any either, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to number 8. We have no bylaws to deal with tonight. So moving on to number 9, which is business items. 9.1 is the 2023 Development Activity Report. And go ahead, administration, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. That's okay. So we're happy to present the 2023 Development Activity Report this evening. I'll go through a bit of a purpose of what this report provides, talk about some of the statistics in detail, and then discuss next steps. So this development activity report was implemented in 2021. It was a desire amongst our stakeholders and council to provide a yearly update on the activities of development within the town of Stony Plain and to provide a wide range of content and statistics which indicate the activity in our town. So first I'll talk about land development inquiries. These are publicly available, publicly facing inquiry service that we provide, which has an open-ended style and allows residents or developers to approach the town with potential plans. It is tiered in 3 different steps to allow for just general questions, requests for meetings, or detailed review of some preliminary concepts. And we did see an increase. We have seen an increase steadily in this service since 2020, and another jump this year, a total of 84 increase. Now I'll talk about some of the subdivisions and development agreements that have taken place in 2023. 5 conditional subdivision approvals were given. 1 development agreement was executed, and 6 subdivisions were endorsed. On the right, you'll see the locations which these subdivisions received conditional approval in. You'll note that one was in Glory Hills. We saw another one in the industrial area, which was approved, and some of the main areas that we see developing right now are Brickyard Stage 5, Westera, and South Creek. Overall, we did see an increase in the amount of permits issued in 2023. There was a significant portion of these that are attributed to alterations and additions, and did contribute to an overall 5% increase, although we did see a decrease in some aspects, which I will talk about shortly. So we issued 74 permits for new residential dwelling units. This was a decrease from last year, which was 115, this year 74. There are several factors contributing to this. Overall, federally and provincially, there was a decrease in permits being issued. And we did also see the planning stages for several large projects get approved near the end of 2023, meaning that the actual building permits were not issued, but we do anticipate to issue building permits for several large projects here in the coming months of the new year 2024. So this table shows the neighborhoods in which some of these housing starts have taken place. the number of permits issued in the various neighborhoods there, and the types, being residential or industrial, commercial, etc. So Sun Meadows in particular received our highest kind of heat mapping of the amount of permits issued, being 36 high density and 4 single detached residential permits. And that attributed to 33% of all permits issued for this permit type within the town, and the second highest being Genesis on the Lakes. So this map is showing these general areas around town where permits were being issued, and the percentage share of the permits that they comprised. So again, Sun Meadows was quite an active area, representing a very high percentage of the permits issued, and Genesis on the Lakes as well. We were seeing a lot of housing starts completed there. And so this slide is showing a bit of a breakdown on new construction versus alterations and additions. So you will note that there were several alterations and additions as compared to new construction. Again, this is indicative of a general trend federally and provincially last year, where we did see a decrease overall. But again, as I mentioned, we do anticipate several large projects to begin shortly here in the new year, and the planning approval processes were completed for them last year. And again, a continued kind of reflection of this, alterations versus new construction. Alterations typically have much lower construction value as compared to a new project being much more expensive to build, and as such, we did see a decrease this year. So for plumbing and gas permits, we issued 222 gas permits last year, 87 plumbing permits, and 329 electrical permits. These are trade permits which are associated with building projects. They're a requirement of the Alberta Building Code. We do contract out the bulk of the inspections related to all of the inspections related to this work, and issue the permits in-house. There was a general decrease again in these kinds of permits, as they typically relate to new construction. So as I had mentioned, there was a general decrease in development activity in 2023, despite seeing technically an increase in the amount of permit volumes, but this can be attributed to alterations being a very high volume as opposed to new construction, and this is consistent with the provincial and federal trend. So this report is being provided for information. Administration plans to continue to monitor and track all these various statistics and housing and development indicators, and continue to report back to council in a yearly timeframe. And welcome any questions.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation, and definitely I find it very valuable to have this presentation. It kind of sums it all up for council and our residents. In the past, when we didn't have this report, we'd have to go and find the numbers all the time, and it was it's always there. It was just harder to get because it wasn't put into one package, and I definitely appreciate that. Members of council, any questions or comments for clarity and understanding? Councilor Pletchko, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to refer to page 31 of 67, and I think it's just a typo error, but it says Stony Plain processed 6 subdivision endorsements in 2022, a 50% increase from the number of subdivisions endorsed in 2022, and in brackets 4. Should that 2022 of the 6 subdivisions should be 2023?
Through your worship to you, Deputy Mayor Pletchko. Correct, that does appear to be a typo.
Thank you. And if I could, just one more.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I always appreciate this report. It helps us to understand what's going on in the region. One of the questions that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if administration will have an answer for this or not, or we could get one. What is that trend being caused by?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Pletchko. It's certainly difficult to quantify all those external factors which impact, development in general. I would stress that they are external factors. It's not a matter of our internal processes or practices that are causing that trend, but something that we've seen mostly to do with supply chain issues, increasing costs, rising interest rates. There's a lot of conditions financially right now for the development community that do make things challenging, and so that's a big part of the reason why we see that trend.
Appreciate that answer. Stony Plain is a place that's open for business, and it's nice to know that it's nothing that we're doing. It's more of a trend in the market, so thanks for that answer.
Thank you, and appreciate that. And I'll just add to that the feedback there. At the last housing forecast reception, one of the things that was noted was because of the increased mortgage rates, which a lot of residents and people that were thinking of maybe upgrading a house or moving chose not to, because if they had a existing mortgage at a lower rate, if they would have purchased a new house, then their mortgage rates were going to go up, which means it made it unaffordable. So many families who were, instead of relocating, they were taking those dollars and then refinancing at the same rate that they had to renovate their homes. I think that's why we've seen a spike in the renovations. I know, for example, I was talking to a couple of my neighbors. They moved. Their current rate is 5.74, but their old rate was 1.99. So as you can tell, if you do the math, that's a big number, especially on a $300,000 mortgage, and that's why a lot of families chose not to move, and that's why the housing development slowed down last 2 years, I think. Okay, any more questions for clear understanding? Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to administration, I would just, I'd assume that alterations and additions would include garden suites. I'm just curious, is there a way for us to tell, well, first the question, alterations and additions that is garden suites? So that'll be first question.
Yep, good question, go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, I don't believe that would be considered an alteration. I might have to check on that. But because I think when you're referring to a garden suite, you mean the creation of a secondary suite, like its own dwelling. And we would try to reflect that in a new dwelling unit being created. So I'm leaning towards it would not be reflected as an alteration.
Okay, so just a follow-up question to that. In regards to garden suites, is there a way that we could flush that out and have that separated as its own number?
Through your worship to Councillor Meyer, we can absolutely provide a more detailed breakdown of whether or not the new dwelling units created were suites or not, or garden suites, garage suites. Yes, we can provide that in future reports.
Okay, thank you. And just a comment on that, I did notice that Old Town did have a good chunk of these permits, so I'm just curious to see if that is any of that.
Yep, and that's a good question. I appreciate the follow-up from the manager. As definitely one of council's priorities is to provide more housing options and affordability, and that's why we included secondary suites on all the R1, 2, 3, and 5. Not 1, 2, 3, and 4, and also allowed the addition of garden suites as well. So suites above garages and stuff, which then kind of pushed the availability of housing options in our community. So that'd be good for us to see the difference. Thank you. Any other questions for clear understanding? Councilor Hanser, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know I raised this when we were doing strategic planning this year, and I believe there was possibly another time that I also raised the issue, but the general public doesn't have an opportunity, especially to go back and watch a video of this council meeting. I'm wondering if, I'm trying to decide who's the best to ask from administration. Could we please have a few words to explain the population number at 17,993 in 2021, and that we're not doing municipal census anymore, because in many ways I think it's been explained that that number doesn't mean anything in as far as extra dollars coming to the town from higher levels of government. But could we have a few words of explanation about why we have a target or a planned strategy around a population of 30,000 people in the next number of years, 10 years, when we're sitting at just under 18,000 in 2021. Is it possible that we've already topped 20,000, so that 30,000 target is appears to be more attainable? Because without any measuring stick, between 2021, we're now in 2024, and I believe we're not at a census year yet for, another 2 years or whatever? Could somebody please speak to that? And I guess I'm calling on our town manager, Mr. Golden.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hansard. I mean, I can just add some comment before I turn it to the town manager, the experts. Well, definitely, you're right. So the population numbers that are shown on the report are based on the federal census. Quite a few years ago, the town of Stoney Plain also did a municipal census, and the provincial government also did a provincial census. That has all stopped now. We've been relying on the numbers from the federal census, as the provincial government and the federal government only funded grants based on the federal census. So for us to do a municipal census or the provincial government to do a provincial census was good to track numbers, but it didn't give us any ability to garner any more dollars for roads, infrastructure, and grants. So hence, that's why we're not doing that. And in terms of the next federal census will be, as you mentioned, 2026. So we'll know our numbers. And in terms of how many residents do we have now, it'd be a guesstimate. So what our staff does in terms of forecasting is they'll take the number of new housing build stats from 2021 till today, and then you multiply those housing stats by the average number of people that are in there, like I think it was 2.47. So you take that times 2, then therefore we can have an estimate of how many people we have in our community. In terms of official, to use in terms of numbers for grant applications, that won't happen until the next federal census comes out.
Okay.
Town manager, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and appreciate the question, and I'll maybe just provide some context and some further comments. So, yeah, even in my own head, I consider, housing starts times 2.5 is a rough estimate of population growth that we can track. Again, census numbers come out every 5 years. Those are the facts, so to speak, if you want to call it that. But that's one way I track it in my own mind. And I believe the last time I looked at it myself too, that would put us, we would have to be in and around 200, 225 housing starts a year to move towards that 30,000 number in the rough timeline that it's been outlined. So, Your Worship, maybe just a bit further. So I think Councillor Hansard spoke about that 30,000 population number. And I believe, Your Worship, through to the rest of council, that's a goal, that's something to strive for, as well as a recognition that Stoney Plain is going to be a growing community, is going to continue to grow. And we will need to plan for that growth and manage that growth, and not just community-wise, but internally and organizationally. I think I'm just going to stop there, Your Worship. There's just a few comments or context, and maybe just if I answered some of the question, or if there's any follow-up from there.
Good, Councilor Hansard, any more questions, or just for clarity?
Yes, Your Worship, for clarity. I appreciate the words from both yourself, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Golden. The thing that I find interesting is extrapolating what we believe the approximate numbers are. We know for sure the 17,993 or whatever the number was I read off a minute, yes, 993, good gosh, 17,993 people. That's solid. That's in the federal census. That's what we're able to draw monies from upper levels of government for, to support our roads and other things. We know that number has grown, even though we had a pandemic, even though we had a slow 2021. When I look at these stats, I see we actually did a fair amount of development in that year immediately following 2020 20, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm not using the C word, C-O-V-I-D. I hate saying it, and I don't want to refer to it constantly. But that slowed everything down. We were on a trend, it slowed everything down. We actually have rebounded quite well. I know we've had to plan, and that's why council needs to see what is our population likely to be. We also have come to the realization that we are in a high growth priority area as determined by the capital region and by the province. So we don't actually get to say, moratorium, we don't want to grow anymore. We want to stay small town, Stony Plain with no more population growth. We don't get to say that anymore because people with bigger paychecks than any of us draw say that's not going to be possible. We have growth, it will happen. The best we can do, and it's not a default, but the best we can do is manage it and manage it very well. And I have a lot of confidence in what's happening in our planning and infrastructure department and in our senior leadership team and CAO about how we are positioning ourselves to attain these population numbers. And what do we do with these people? We're being told in our real estate circles, Urban Development Institute, et cetera, approximately 200,000 plus people will come into the province in the next little while, next year. And they have to go somewhere. Good chance a lot of them are going to settle in the capital region, and there certainly is a chance that many of them will come to Stony Plain. So when people see that 30,000, rather than be concerned that that's what we're striving to go to, we have to understand that that's what we will go to. It's only a matter of when and how well do we plan for it. So thank you for your comments, and I appreciate being able to have that put into words. Does anybody have a number with all the extrapolation?
I do.
What we think our population may be today? And it's okay if that number is not accurate.
Yep. So Councilor Hansard, so for when I do my math, if you look at page 35, members of council, this is how I work the numbers. So based on the 2021 census, which is based on the 2020 surveys. So for the housing residential starts for 2021 was 110, 22 was 115, and 23 was 74. So if you take all those, which then multiply that by 2.5, which is the average family household, which brings you approximately 747.5 residents. If you add that to the federal survey, brings you 18,740.5 residents as of right now, based on the way that I calculate things. And then, as council is aware, we also applied for the Housing Accelerator grant from the federal government. If the town is successful in that, there is a minimum requirement within that that we produce 250 new housing units per year for the next 5 years. So if you take that at the minimum of 250 units, times 5 years, times 2.5 as the average family household, that's another 3,125 residents over the next 5 years. So when we're finished in 5 years from now, the population should be roughly around 21,865.5 residents in the town of Stony Plain. So that's how I do my math, because I use the stats that we have, and I come to those numbers.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the discussion around that so that all of our good residents can understand what council is trying to do here, and that is to position ourselves well to handle whatever comes in the way of population growth.
That is correct, Councilor Hansard, and if they follow along on our next meeting, March 11th, we'll be adopting our council strategic plan, which then lays out the 4-year progression of the town of Stony Plain, and in that plan lays out a lot of things that we look for in terms of providing the services to residents today, but also then gearing us up for taking care of the residents that come in the future as well. Councilor Lori, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Couple of questions, starting on page 33. This is back to the location of subdivision, conditional improvements and endorsements and development agreements. Just wondering for clarity, because we see a couple of different things on the map here, can we get a little bit of a description of the difference between the subdivision conditional approval area, the development agreement area, and the subdivision endorsement area? If we can get a little bit just clarity of what each one of those encompasses.
Go ahead, Administration.
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, absolutely. So the conditional subdivision approval areas are noted in that maroon shade. Those which have been endorsed as well have a blue outline. And then the development agreement area is kind of a green or teal hatching. So to explain that a little bit, a conditional subdivision approval approves the design of new lotting, and the conditions themselves form essentially the details which must be resolved before administration is willing to endorse the subdivision application. So this could be potentially specific engineering drawings on how the civil infrastructure will be created for the roads. That may be a condition. Perhaps there's also some utility right-of-ways that need to be created for different service providers. Those are some of the examples of typical subdivision conditions. So once the subdivision approval is granted, the developer goes and looks through his checklist of conditions to complete. We go through the detail engineering design, and then once all those conditions have been satisfied, they can come to the town and say, look, we did our work. We would like the town to endorse the subdivision application, and we'd like to go register the lots with Alberta Land Titles. Development agreements themselves are those agreements that take place between the town and the developer to make sure that municipal infrastructure is constructed according to our standards and is warrantied accordingly.
Excellent, thank you. And so just a little bit further along on that then, and this is just maybe a piece of feedback for going forward. I know from experience in some of these coming forward, for instance, the South Park Drive PUL, we know that encompasses no residential. That doesn't have any necessarily lots or anything like that coming online. Whereas, for instance, I'm not familiar with Glory Hills Road. So I have no idea what this necessarily means in this report as to, as you mentioned, the number of lots that potentially could come online. And so it's maybe just a piece of feedback for the reporting in the future. It'd be a nice detail to have on here to understand how many lots have essentially been created and what the potential zoning on those lots would be. So, if Glory Hills has, judging by the size of that area, probably could have a couple hundred residential lots on it. But if it's been zoned as a future development or it's been zoned as, an industrial, it might be one lot. And so it's just not overly clear. The only other question that I had on this page, and then I've got another one, is in regards to South Creek Stage 5. We had Qualico in here, I believe it was last meeting. They were talking a little bit about not moving forward with Stage 5 at this time, reverting to Stage 4. I'm assuming Stage 4 was previously approved prior to 2023, and that's why we don't see it on this report?
Yep.
Through your worship to Councillor, that's correct. It was previously approved in another development year.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then if I may continue, your worship?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Following page 34, the development and building permits, and this kind of goes back to our secondary suites. I was looking too for a little bit of a definition. I see under miscellaneous, home occupation, secondary suites, signs, and moves, demolitions, etc. So it appears secondary suites are buried somewhere in here. The reason why I want to identify this is because I do feel that, as Councillor Meyer stated, this is a very important statistic for us to be pulling out. I also know that there's a existing building on 49th Avenue, the name escapes me right now, initially had, I believe it was zoned for commercial, or they had commercial potential on the main floor. We know that they had converted and they've now constructed residential units in there. I feel like the report is missing our total number of new units added in the town of Stony Plain because that information isn't pulled out. So to me, a home occupation or a sign permit or a move demolition classed under miscellaneous makes perfect sense. A secondary suite or something additional, I would believe that we won't see secondary suites or these changes under new, because to me, new is something that didn't exist before. So if there's a way in future reporting that we can have those numbers broken out, and if there's a way that we could get some reporting back, because while we see our new residential was at 74 versus 115 last year, there's potential that we could see 25, 50 units buried somewhere else in this report that actually shows new housing units available to residents within the town, which would impact the calculations as the mayor was alluding to in regards to population change and those type of things. So if we could see that broken out, I think that would be very beneficial. And then I do have one more, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Page 52. This goes to the permitted dwelling units, the new dwelling units, again, as we go. We see in 2015, we had 381 come online. We know that is due to some high-density development that was constructed at that time. You alluded to several projects that have kind of gone through planning, but didn't necessarily get the permit phase. They didn't hit the 2023 statistics. That would lead me to believe we're likely to see those in 2024. I think that's what you mentioned. I'm just wondering, do you have an estimate or kind of a starting number, I guess, as to where you anticipate we may be at in 2024, given the projects that you're aware of that have come through the planning process?
Okay, go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, yes. So those three larger scale projects, which I mentioned, would probably amount to somewhere between 120 to 150 residential dwelling units, which is quite significant, being that it would essentially double the number that we produced this year. If further than that, I would expect that we see something similar to around, what we saw this year, being in the 50 to 70 range in addition to those large major projects, as we have seen some subdivisions recently come online. So yeah, in total, I would say, around 200 would be our rough estimate currently.
Excellent. I appreciate that context because I think that does show, I know this council has been doing a lot of work in regards to, we did some changes with our land use bylaw. We've done a lot of work with the Housing Accelerator Fund, the Housing Needs Assessment. It's a file that we've paid very close attention to over the last while, knowing that there is an anticipated influx in population, knowing that the housing crisis that we're in right now and the challenge in respect to rents and home prices and mortgage rates. And with the rates dropping, or hopefully dropping from the Bank of Canada, we know that that's likely to spur the market as well. So all in all, I'm looking forward to seeing this report in a year's time. I think it's going to show a very good picture for the town. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for Councillor Laurie. Any other questions and comments for clear and understanding? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation this evening. This is one I always learn a ton through, not something that knew particularly much about prior to my time with council, but just through the conversation at the table this evening, I've heard a couple of things that have piqued my interest, and one being related to the Housing Accelerator Fund and the need for us to get that housing start number up to about 215, I believe was the number that I heard, based on some preliminary projections for this next year, about 200. If we look back on the permitted dwelling units that we see presented here in Chambers, we only have one year since 2014 where we've exceeded that 215 units. So that raises some concern and some questions for me. And I'm going to circle back actually, and this was asked and I think answered a little bit, but do want to put it on the table again. And that was Deputy Mayor Palechko's question about sort of our processes and are there things that maybe are hindering the development in our community. Recently we heard federally some comments about how municipalities are getting in the way of housing developments within their own municipalities. We heard 2 weeks ago, just through conversation with Qualico and some of the challenges that they experienced with us as a municipality related to zero lot lines. I do believe we've made some healthy decisions for a municipality that way, but we did hear the impact that had on their work in our municipality and sort of their feelings about how things were going. And so all that to sort of preface the question, are there things within our land use bylaws, within our policies and programs that we need to look at to be able to reach that 215 dwelling units a year to take full advantage of the Housing Accelerator Fund if we're to be awarded that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to provide some commentary and context on that one. I think it's a question that has some potential answer, but just also has some dialogue that can go on here and is going on across the country, frankly. I mean, as it relates to Stony Plain itself, again, I know that we're always looking for ways to improve or speed up or, to a degree, make more efficient, so to speak. But I would be remiss if I wasn't to indicate that, there's a tipping point and a balance point there. A lot of the inspections, the processes are in place for good reason. Some of it is related to safety of the dwelling units that are being constructed and electrical codes to make sure things are, the way they should be and all of that sort of stuff. So there's always going to be a balance point or a tipping point as to how any municipality can approach the ease of doing business, so to speak. And I would think that, most municipalities will be able to strike a balance that will be competitive, but will also reflect their own community's perspective and needs. I would expect, for the town of Stony Plain along that line, that we would measure up well against our, direct competitors for turnaround times and regulations, and I'd be confident in saying that. I'd be confident in saying that Alberta as a province is probably on the lower end of the regulatory aspect for housing starts or development or buildings, commercial, whichever they may be. What I would put into the dialogue with council is what I believe I'm seeing, and I believe what council is probably perceiving as well, is this conversation is taking place across the province, across the country, in the context of, how much of the, fees, regulations, so on and so forth, how much is that adding to the cost of housing? And is that a good or bad thing? And that's a dialogue that I believe is louder and more widespread than I've seen in my own career span in municipal government. There's groups going down to Ottawa to explain. CHBA was just there not too long ago, Canadian Home Builders Association, with call what you want, a white paper or whatnot that they presented to the Government of Canada to say, here's some of our solutions as to, what's the terms now? We're talking about 5 million houses or something like that over the course of the next 15 or 10 years. I can't remember the exact numbers, but, to meet the housing need. And so I'll try to wrap up. I was just putting some more thoughts into the conversation, I guess, more than anything. I know we're constantly internally looking for different ways, or how can we speed up or remove or make things easier for the development industry as a whole, and maybe residential even more specific. But I would also add that there's a balance point. There's a point where these processes are there, whether it's to engage the public on zoning or public hearings and so on, that although take time to set up, are there for a reason, or some of our own internal checks and balances. Again, I believe we stack up well in our direct competitive capital region. Always working on it, but balancing that with the fact that in this particular instance, the town of Stony Plain, City of Spruce Grove, City of Edmonton, does in fact have a regulatory authority and duty, and we were given that authority and duty for a good reason as well. So I'll stop there, Your Worship. That's just some general context.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Anderson, does that answer your questions?
Yeah, I do sort of appreciate the survey, sort of the situation across the country and here locally as well. So I guess, if I may, one quick follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. With all of that sort of being said and understood, and wanting to make sure, that we have not just ample housing, but safe housing and a diverse variety of housing. Councillor Laurie had a great summary of some of the steps we've taken over the last while to try to ensure that that's a reality for us. I did hear through you, Mr. Mayor, the town manager mentioned that he feels that internally we have what we need to turn around the requests and that sort of thing. And so just very simply, do we have the resources internally to ensure that, we don't have a pinch point in processing applications and whatnot, to ensure that we're providing timely responses to our developers to help keep things moving along? Or is there some areas for growth there that we need to look at and consider?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that follows up really with our Housing Accelerated Fund application, and that does address some of those lynch points and pinpoints that we might have. Can the administration provide a little update on that, just kind of a synopsis of what we're applied for and how that will help streamline development in their community, and also how we can actually use that to accelerate some of our new construction to come online?
Yeah, Your Worship, I can maybe take a quick shot at that, and then some of the planning staff or the general manager can maybe supplement. I know, just going back to this, question about ability, and so one of those abilities is a digital system, which we don't have at this point, which is part of the HAF application, and if I think approved, would take some time to implement, but that would make, I believe it's one of our higher concerns brought forward by the development industry is that we don't have a digital system to receive permits and so on and so forth. And I think, that'll take a little bit of time to implement, but I think once that's done, that would be a good step forward on that aspect. I was going to turn it over to the staff and if there's any further comment they want to make there.
Thank you, Town Manager. So in addition to the comments by the Town Manager there about the permitting and processes are one part of the process. Planning staff engage with the development committee formally and informally at different points throughout the year for different reasons. There is one, in the report, there's actually in Figure 2 on page 2 of the report, it does show an interesting stat on our pre-applications. So these are discussions we have with developers, builders, to try and make the applications and the process better and stronger, working with them. And in conjunction to the question about are we, in addition to tools and resources, it's really working together and ensuring that the proposals being brought forward are going to be successful, they're going to be safe, they're going to work, they're going to be not tied up in other issues that could be otherwise avoided. And what we're seeing is that trend is the pre-apps are actually getting more engaged with, and those can as the development supervisor just pointed out in his presentation, those you see those numbers go up. It's usually a lead indicator, and you have a lag indicator with the development permits coming down. And as he indicated with his answer just now, we're expecting some more of those permits to turn into actual starts in the next year. So as we see, it's how we are learning how the community works, wants to work with administration, wants to work with council through land use bylaw updates, and ensuring that we're delivering the service that we can and that developers expect, so that we can keep all those proposals moving forward in a safe and responsible manner.
Okay, thank you. And I think the general manager referenced page 3 of the report, but it's actually page 29 of the agenda package. So I think you can reference both of those. So if you're looking for page 3, it doesn't jive with what John Manager is saying. It's actually page 29 on our agenda package. Okay, any other more questions for clear understanding before we move on? Nope. So again, on behalf of council and the residents, thank you much for the report. I think, as mentioned earlier, that this reporting style came to council in 2021, so it allows council to have the opportunity to kind of look at in kind of a one snapshot to see what's happening in our community over the last year. Allows us, as we talked many times, of building our community for residents today and for the future, and this kind of gives us that kind of baseline of what happened last year and where we're trending towards next year. So thank you. Councilor Anderson for the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that Town Council accept the 2023 Development Activity Report for information this evening.
Thank you. Members of Council, any debate or questions, comments on the motion to accept for information? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Moving on to 9.2. And it's the 2024 Appointment Assessment Review Board members. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, through your worship, to you and council. The town of Stony Plain is a member of the Capital Region Assessment Services Commission, who has acted as the Regional Assessment Review Board for the town since 2010. As per the MGA, as well as Town Bylaw 2623 AS 19, council annually must appoint the panelists and the chairs of the Local Assessment Review Board, the Composite Assessment Review Board, and the clerk who is provided to the town by the commission. Administration is recommending that the motion that is before council today to approve the recommended panelists for 2024 be considered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. As council is aware, this is a yearly thing. Then reading the background, these are the individuals that have passed the test or taken the training to be part of the Assessment Review Board. And this is, again, a regional services that the town of Stony Plain participates in. Any questions for clear understanding? Councillor Hanser, go ahead.
Just clarification, please, Mr. Mayor. So we have no council members serving on Assessment Review Board anymore? It's all public members?
Yes, so Councillor Hanser, that there could be a council member if they took the training and they were also selected by the Capital Region Assessment Services Commission to sit on there. So if any member wants to, you still have to do your training. You still have to apply to the commission, and if you were successfully, then your name might appear on here. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Meyer for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council appoint Gerald Amarin to Capital Regional Assessment Services Commission as Assessment Review Board Clerk for 2024. 2, Raymond Ralph as Chair of the Assessment Review Board for 2024. And Darlene Chartrand, Cheryl Exley, Tina Grosco, Stuart Henning, Richard Knowles, Dennis Meyer, and Raymond Ralph as panelists of the 2024 Assessment Review Board.
Okay. Thank you much, Councillor Meyer. Any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Okay. Call the question on favor. Okay. And that's carried. Moving on to 9.3. And again, it's the Tri-Municipal Leisure Facility Member at Large appointment. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, through your worship, to you and council. After our annual citizen at large appointments in October, a vacancy became available on the Tri-Municipal Leisure Facility Board. The vacancy was advertised and we received one application, and we are recommending the appointment of Roxanne Kitts to fill the remainder of the vacating member's term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of council, any questions or comments for clarity and understanding? Councillor Hanser, go ahead.
Your Worship, I'm just curious, were there multiple people who applied, or was there only one person?
Okay, thank you. I think that there was only one application that was received, according to the background information.
Through your worship, to Councillor Hansard, that is correct.
Further to that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Hanser.
Are we allowed to know who was the citizen at large who stepped down from that position? I don't think it was an end of term.
You're absolutely right, Councillor Hanser. That's why the applicant is fulfilling a previous term, so it's 1 year and only for 1 year term, and then that individual is then eligible to be renewed if they choose. And the current member, that member at large for Town of Stony Plain, is a member of our community, but has then since accepted a role with our own municipality. So then, hence that individual can no longer sit as a citizen at large at the Tri-Municipal Leisure Facility Board. Okay, any other questions, comments? I see none. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Worship. The Town Council appoint Roxanne Kitts to the Tri-Municipal Leisure Facility Board.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on favor. Okay, and that is carried. Right, moving along to number 10 is council discussion. So this is the time that council members have the opportunity to bring things forward from members of the community or just provide some highlights of what's happening on their boards, committees, and commissions, just so that council and administration is aware. We'll start with Councilor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I've got a question for administration. I had concern raised to me by a resident about access to the ATS service, and it didn't compute with me because I kind of know the process a little bit. They were advised, or they're claiming that they were advised that in order to receive ATS services, this is our Accessible Transit Services, for those who don't know acronym, that there was a 1-year waiting list at this time. I'm just wondering if administration can speak to that and hopefully clarify any potential as to what may have led to that interpretation.
Okay. Administration.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie, certainly our ATS, our Accessible Transit Service, is at capacity at this moment. So we're not taking new clients as the staff and the time available and the demand is just exceeding the resources that we currently have. So I would suggest we're more at capacity than a wait list. So we used to take a wait list, we're now at capacity because a wait list implies that we would be able to provide you service at some point. So we certainly do recognize that we do add services or add resources through the corporate plan in 2024. So those resources are currently in place and being trained, and we've also received a bus that is a little bit bigger than the previous bus that we had. So we're hoping that those measures will assist us with some of the list that we currently have, but new people being put on the service until such time that we can clear that list that exists now. We're at capacity at this point.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, follow up on that. Our accessible transit has existed much longer than our on-demand transit has existed within the community. We know the on-demand transit system fills a significant need that was out there, particularly for those who probably weren't eligible for accessible transit. However, our on-demand transit does have a certain level of accessibility to it as well. I know the City of Spruce Grove has done a little bit of work in that. I think they just passed a motion for free ridership for chaperones or for dedicated support persons and so on and so forth. I'm wondering, have we done any work in regards to our current capacity in ATS in understanding how many of those clients may actually be able to be served by the on-demand system, and opening up capacity more specifically for ATS needs for residents who are looking for their doctor's appointments and those who simply can't take that on-demand transit or have higher needs than on-demand transit?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie, certainly that is a solution that we do provide. Those that do call or those that are able to, from our knowledge of the particular client, we do educate them on the on-demand system and the strength of the on-demand system Monday to Friday. Of course, our system is only Monday to Friday within the defined working hours of that particular system. We do have a lot of clients that have transitioned over to the on-demand because it does provide them the benefit, excuse me, and they're able to navigate through that particular system. So certainly as people are phoning, if we don't have the capacity, we do offer that. Plus there's a host of other agencies that do provide a similar type of service that ATS does. We do provide them with that list also. So it's not simply a no, we can't provide the service. It's we're at capacity, here are some options. And if they're able to take one of those options and meet their needs, then certainly that's awesome for us. Definitely, as we continue moving through our process, if we're able to transition more people over to on-demand, that certainly would be a goal because that is part and parcel to putting the client in the right transportation sphere to meet the needs that they currently have. So some of our clients that were typically able-bodied, able to navigate through on-demand, being able to go to their job site within Atchison or wherever the on-demand system currently functions, certainly that is something that we're transitioning people to. So the on-demand system has opened the ability for some of that capacity boil up to be taken through the on-demand system. Plus, it's also expanded some that would typically have chosen ATS to look for a different avenue, and we're not receiving those phone calls. So we can't tell you what those numbers are in terms of people that would have typically called ATS but have found a solution with on-demand. But certainly we are aware of the fact that there are some previous clients that are now on-demand, and we do suggest on-demand as a potential solution for them.
Yep, anything else?
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, it is a little concerning hearing that we are at capacity on that and that we're not able to offer that to residents who currently don't, especially given that, we are growing and we do have more residents. I appreciate we do have stuff coming online. In this example, I know this person had reached out to multiple different agencies for support and again was not able. The only thing that they were able to source this time, our local taxi services do not have capacity and capability for serving whatever these specific needs were, and the best that they could find was an outfit from Edmonton that was going to charge them $160 for an appointment in Spruce Grove. And so it's very concerning. Obviously, that would include them having to come out from Edmonton, take this client to their appointment in Spruce Grove, wait with them, take them back to Stony Plain, and then travel back to Edmonton. So I can understand the expense of $160, but I mean, obviously in current times, and likelihood is that person probably can't afford that. And so there's definitely want to keep an eye on that and see how it is. If I may, Your Worship?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Just again, a question raised. I give kudos to our crews who were out there today in the snow removal. I don't recall the last time I saw a dump of snow this large in that quick a period of time. One of the questions that I was asked today, just knowing that, or advising a resident that we don't have 24/7 public works, that we just have emergency on-call after hours, was just on a day like today, what time typically do the crews start and start working on those priority routes?
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, I appreciate the comment on the crews. I know that they work really hard on keeping the snow off the roads and where it needs to go. To your comment about when they start, so the short answer is that they'll start around the 6 a.m. mark. We'll usually have a person going around doing a survey. When we know that there's a major snow event coming, we can give the union notice to extend those hours a little bit, to tweak them. So they might go from a 10-hour to a 12-hour, but there's rules within the union agreement that we have to give notice ahead of time and work with them on that. For today, I know that they were out around the 6 a.m. mark, getting going. They're working 10-hour shifts right now. Probably going to extend those into 12 and through the week just to catch up on all this refreshing snow that we just got.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just for clarity, was that the first plow was out on the road at 6 a.m. or that was somebody was out on the road at 6 a.m. trying to determine where the best place to start was?
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, for this event, the exact answer is it's probably a little bit of both. The trucks were probably out with getting some guides from one of the other, from the foreman itself.
Okay, thank you very much. Other than that, Your Worship, just a couple of quick updates. Was able to attend the Government of Alberta Regional Health Engagement with Councillor Loynes last week. It was a great session. There was lots of engagement that was done. We had a table, I think, of about 8 of us in our group, and there was probably about 8 or 10 of those tables scattered throughout the room, so there was a good attendance at that. Very interesting to see the government's proposed model for how they are going to be moving healthcare into the 4 different verticals and service delivery models. Lots of focus on how they were going to be working together and how they could improve service delivery, so looking forward to seeing some of the results of that. As well, attended the Dane Lloyd lunch hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. It's always good to hear from our Member of Parliament on how things are going in Ottawa and how he's working on our behalf there. As well, I want to mention the Info Fair, the Spring Info Fair. Oh my goodness, that snow just kicked me back into a different season. the Spring Info Fair, because it looked like spring last Thursday. It was incredibly well attended. Typically it is very well attended to begin with, but pulling into the Heritage Park parking lot and seeing that it was well pushed to capacity into the gravel portion of that parking lot, walking into the building, seeing all of our amazing local clubs and organizations in there, and the sheer number of people that were out there gave me a lot of hope for everything that we've got offered in our community, and that people are really getting out there and starting to connect and enjoying and maybe trying new things. Other than that, I'm looking forward to the tail end of this week to the provincial budget being dropped and the announcement of that. I know we've got a couple of engagement sessions after that we have options to attend to disseminate and start understanding. A little concerned after listening to the Premier's address on that was televised of how that may look and how some of those impacts may impact us, but I'm sure our staff will do a good job of deep diving into that and updating us quite quickly on how that's going to impact us. So, other than that, that's what I have this evening. Thank you, Your Worship.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Moving on to Deputy Mayor. Councillor Pletcher, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Well, I wanted to first off start off by thanking Public Works this morning. I can say for sure, I know they had tractors out on the sidewalks at 7 o'clock this morning with plows, plowing the snow, because I actually witnessed it with my own eyes. So good job to them. And I think just shortly after 1 o'clock, the main road out at Rosenthal also was plowed, and it's usually one of the last ones to get done, so I would suspect they were doing a pretty good job within our community. So kudos to each and every one of them that got up this morning to a pile of snow that we haven't seen in almost a year now, so congratulations. Also wanted to talk a little about, I had a chance this weekend to participate in the coldest night of the year. It was a great walk. There was a number of people that come out from the community area to support the local food bank. I think they raised about $76,000. Interesting thing was there was 15 individuals there that each raised $1,000. So kudos to the 15 individuals that took time to find time to raise $1,000 for that food bank, because it's a very important. They were a little shy of their goal of 86,000, but it is open till the end of March. So I encourage each one of us sitting in this room here that participated in it, if you can find any more of your friends to volunteer a few dollars, that would be a great thing. And we had the opportunity tomorrow night, Chamber on Tap. It's a local chamber organized event that a few of us are going to. It's a good evening to see what's happening in the community. It brings out the business community and a good conversation. So that's it for this evening. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pletcher, Deputy Mayor. And obviously, I didn't do a very good job being Deputy Mayor because you mentioned Chamber on Tap, but you didn't say where it was. So you left everybody hanging. Like, where is this? So it is at Homegrown Foods down in North Business Park. Councillor Pletcher, no, done. So Councillor Hansard, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to give thanks to Public Works, certainly in the town of Stony Plain, but across the Tri-region, for getting the snow moved. And my husband and I came back from watching the Bob Marley movie yesterday, and it was horrendous. It took quite a while to get through the snow on Highway 16A. So I was grateful that that was moved, a good bit of it. Already the plows were out, 2 plows were out around 11 o'clock last night. Also, I just want to mention the Let Us Get to Know Each Other event that's being held at the Heritage Park on February 28th, 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. I don't know if you can still sign up for that, but the community comes together to talk about things in the community that they feel are important, and we'll be connecting with each other and learn from service providers, discuss social issues, and I'm sure anybody can think of at least one social issue that you'd like to discuss, and build community collaborations. And that's what the town of Stony Plain is about. Thank you, Your Worship.
Hey, thank you, Councillor Hansard. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the sentiments that have been shared around the table already, and don't need to echo any of those, but do want to express some appreciation for specifically our amateur athlete programs in our municipality over the last 3 weeks. I've had the privilege of witnessing 3 separate community-based organizations involved in various aspects of community. The first being the Sweetheart Ringette Tournament there at the Tri-Leisure Center. Over 1,300 athletes, not counting families and so on, were in town. Teach a number of kiddos that participated, and I know it was very, very well received, and the region was a very great host for that event. This past weekend, it was the Copeland Classic at Ariel's Gymnastics, would serve residents in the Tri-Region, and they had over 1,200 athletes competing in the programs there. And then at the aforementioned coldest night of the year, we had one of our local football organizations out, coaches and team, raising money for the food bank. And so certainly just want to thank all of our athletes, but also our coaches and parents that invest so much in our kiddos, and not just in the sport itself, but becoming contributing members of our community. And it's so great when we can see our youth involved from a young age. Research would tell us that continues on later into life. And so gratitude to those amateur organizations, parents, and coaches.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Councilor Anderson. Appreciate that. Councilor Martin.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councilor Anderson, for reminding me. I got the great opportunity to hand out some medals at the Sweetheart Tournament. In fact, there was a U16 Spruce Grove Riot beat the, somewhere in Regina, who cares, it's Saskatchewan, right? Anyhow, double overtime, shootout, and those young ladies got to win one in front of their home crowd. I'm sure it's a memory that will last a long time, like you mentioned. But that aside, just a quick question. I was approached by a resident who wanted many concerns about the dry year. Of course, this was prior to last night's snow dump. And they're looking to purchase rain barrels. And I thought, well, we do something about that. And in fact, they even mentioned they had an opportunity to buy a rain barrel in the past. Just perusing our website here, I see each year the town offers rebates on rain barrels. And then, of course, it announces the 2022 date. I'm just curious through administration if that's a program that we still are doing, if this resident has the opportunity to buy a discounted or get a rain barrel on sale again.
The answer is yes. Administration, what day it is?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Meyer, thank you for the question. I believe the mayor is correct. I would just like the chance to follow up with staff and get some more details on the updates that you're asking for. I could shoot those back to you on an email.
Okay, and just make note then that the website needs an update there too.
Your Worship, maybe I'll just add in too. I know when we do have that rebate sale along with our counterparts in Spruce Grove and Parkland County, they do go fast, as I understand. I think there's a set amount, they do go fast. So although any resident can try to be a part of that, you have to be there to do it and get it. It's not a pre-app kind of thing.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Councilor Loynes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just echo what my other councilors have said on everything that Public Works is doing to clear our snow. I was asked by a couple of residents, understanding that we have to wait till we have compact snow for residential removal. They are wondering if that will be updated on the website anytime soon, knowing that we have 3 feet of snow.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Loynes, certainly we'll be making the updates when we have them. Right now, the crews are just focused on the initial dump of snow that we just got. So I don't have the exact answer what the snowpack will be. We do have a snow and ice control policy that they do follow. So any triggered events will be stemming from that.
Thank you, appreciate that. And then I'd also like to mention that on Wednesday, February 28th, it is Pink Shirt Day, which represents anti-bullying. I would like to point out to some of my fellow councilors are in pink a couple days early, along as myself. Remember, it's not just the kiddos at school that get picked on or bullied. It does happen in the workplace as well. So if everybody would wear pink on Wednesday, that would be great. And that is all from me, Your Worship.
Good. Thank you much, Councilor Loynes. And I think everybody's covered everything. So in terms of what I just wanted to highlight is I just wanted to give a shout out to our staff member Nancy, the team leader of the Stony Plain Superheroes. She had set a goal for us to raise as a team. We exceeded that goal, so kudos to the ones that fundraised. And as the Deputy Mayor mentioned, we just fell short of the food bank's the goal, but the time is still there. You can donate until March 31st. And this is just a call out and a challenge to the city of Spruce Grove and Parkland County. They both had teams there as well. But I'd like to add that our team raised more funds than those two combined. So that's a challenge out to the city of Spruce Grove and Parkland County, that maybe they should look for some more friends in their community to support the Parkland Food Bank. And it's all in jest. We have a good relationship with everybody, but that's something that we like to do. And definitely as a community, we'll step together, and want to thank our staff for arranging that, getting our team together, and taking us to that next level. Okay, with that, moving on with our agenda, we have number 11, nothing closed session tonight that's registered. So moving on to adjournment. We are adjourned till the next governance and priorities meetings. So with that, thank you very much, administration and council. We're adjourned.